Hopefully this time will actually work. I've been struggling to get this to actually record. Um, so I'm sorry for the poor quality, but this is what I have to work with. I hope this all turns out. Okay, so I'm looking at some of the negotiations that happened from 2000 to 2003. The big names being the Mitchell Committee, otherwise known as the Sharm el-Sheikh Fact-Finding Committee, the Rose Garden Address, the Roadmap, the Kava Summit, and the Geneva Initiative. So, going right through these. The first thing is the Mitchell Committee. So, this was formed by President Clinton in 2000 and chaired by former Senator George Mitchell, thus the name Mitchell Committee, in order to try and find the causes of the First Intifada. And, well, that's the main thing, but then they would try to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by giving recommendations. We already kind of know what the results were, but as far as that goes, the committee was, when they released the report, was actually supported by Palestine, as they saw that the report seemed to pretty much favor them, or favor the situation that they wanted, favored them enough that they were willing to jump on board. Unfortunately, Israel was not on board due to some of the stipulations that Israel had not even considered doing. So that was not fun for them to even, that they weren't ready, they weren't going to do that. Thus, well, partly thus, Bush had completely, well, not completely, but he tabled the committee's findings, referencing them occasionally, some of the ideas on there, but really gave up on the committee's reports. And uh, some of the statements, or some of the things that the report had suggested in order to try and solve the situation was that for Israel, Israel had to do several things because of the situation that they put Palestine in, since it was already a weak area, and now Israel had demolished them, as the committee pretty much basically explained. Um, but some of the things that Israel had to do was transfer to Palestine all tax revenues owed, and then also allow Palestinians that were previously employed in Israel to return to their jobs. No one has ever really suggested the idea of Palestinians returning. I mean, there kind of was with the suggestion that Israel needs to go back, but this was still pretty big, the idea. But also, the more common ideas that Israel had to do was, of course, refrain from destruction of homes, roads, and agricultural property in Palestinian areas. Um, that's a more common sense one, but the committee really emphasized on the agricultural property part, so Palestinians could try to make their own economy, their own home, since they were obviously in a shoddy state. The Palestinian Authority was expected, as far as the recommendations states, that they should renew cooperation with Israeli security agencies in order to create security within the areas and prevent terrorism, which Palestinians were all on board for that, or the authority anyway. So that wasn't a problem, and it didn't really demand too much significantly from Palestine other than that. So they were ready for this, and Israel was not satisfied with this idea. The reports used in assessing the situation, uh, because the committee took in reports from both Israel and Palestine, Israel had stated that the violence was a result of the breakdown of the Camp David negotiations, which both sides kind of pretty much basically agree with that idea. But the difference was that Israel had stated that the Palestinian Authority had planned the violence because the international community mostly put responsibility on Palestine for the impasse, or as far as Israel examined the situation, and thus the Palestinian Authority acted out in violence in order to use the casualties of Palestinians to win the hearts of the community and gain some ground in the diplomatic initiative. Thus, it was kind of more of a corruption and scandal kind of idea that Israel proposed. Palestine obviously disagreed with this, stating that it was not planned and that really what this violence showed was that Israel responded to disturbances with excessive and illegal use of deadly force against demonstrators. And therefore, Israel is mean and really really doesn't care for the lives and safety of Palestinians. Some of the examples that Palestine used were the images of Muhammad al-Dara, who was a child that was killed in Gaza on September 30th because he was huddled behind his father and shot regardless. And therefore, this really helped Palestine try to prove their point. And it made Israel look bad, which obviously became a factor for the Mitchell Committee and probably didn't help Israel in that sense. But moving on, because I'm already using 7 minutes, is the Rose Garden address, in which Bush said in his Rose Garden at the White House, thus Rose Garden address, stated that that the United States would not be involved in the Israeli-Palestinian relations until Yasser Arafat was removed from power in the Palestinian Authority. The justification for this was that Arafat was not someone that they could negotiate with. He was too extreme. They needed someone who is respectable and lives up to the idea of democracy, etc., etc. And thus, the United States would be able to take a back seat in regards to the entire situation. Bush did try to reinforce some of the Mitchell Committee's findings by saying, and consistent with the recommendations of the Mitchell Committee, Israeli settlement activity in the occupied territories must stop. So in that sense, at least he did try to use some of the committee's findings and tried to get Israel to stop their settlement. Didn't work at all, especially since it was mostly just a light suggestion, essentially. But the Rose Garden address did work to reinforce the idea that Palestine should be its own state, as that was something that Bush emphasized on, that Palestine should be recognized, which was pretty much significant. It was taking in the committee's recommendations that there be separation completely in depth. And so having Bush state that in the Rose Garden address really just kind of cemented the idea for many of the nations. And then the next step was the roadmap, which was an attempt to resolve the conflict. Surprise, surprise. And this was created by the Quartet of the Middle East, essentially for groups, organizations, states, etc., that were considered the authority and power in regards to what should happen in the Middle East. And this was composed of the United States, European Union, Russia, and the United Nations. It's funny that it wasn't really, obviously, since the United Nations is an organization as small as the European Union, some countries had obviously more say than significantly others, Nonetheless, the roadmap was drafted by U.S. Foreign Service Officer Donald Blum, but unfortunately, the roadmap that they tried to create, that the four organizations had tried to create and drafted, was deadlocked in the first phase, and thus nothing ever came of it. This was something that tried to, this is related to the Aqaba Summit, which happened in June 2003, and this was Aqaba Summit. It was in Aqaba, Jordan. That's why it's called Aqaba Summit. And this was hosted by King Abdullah of Jordan. Those attending were President George Bush, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, and Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Abbas. There was a lot of exchange of pretty words, but that was pretty much it. There wasn't really any settled negotiations on anything. It did nothing to further the idea of the roadmap, which is the purpose of it, to try and get the implementation of the roadmap. So the Kava Summit was essentially a failure. Going on to the Geneva Initiative, this was a draft of the Permanent Status Agreement to end the conflict in October 2003. And what the Geneva Initiative tried to do was take all the previous agreements, so the international resolutions, official negotiations, the Quartet roadmap, Clinton's parameters, and the Arab Peace Initiative, everything. Try to take it all in and find a balance between all of them in order to get the best possible solution for the Arab-Israeli conflict. This was prepared in secret for over 2 years before it was finally released in December 2003 in Geneva, Switzerland. And those involved in the decision process were former Israeli minister and politician Yossi Beilin, as well as the Palestinian Authority Minister Yasser Abed-Rabbo. This was completely not up to the countries themselves as to whether they wanted to actually do this. However, it was suspected Palestine would be on board, as the minister Yasser Abed-Rabbo was actually in power at the time that this was first being made up. So, Palestine was kind of predicted. However, despite getting broad international support as well, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon did not take it well and did not agree to these conditions. Thus, the Geneva Initiative kind of fell flat as far as that goes as well. So that is my report. I have spoken for longer than I should have for my share, so I am going to leave it at that. I apologize for not having the best quality video. Hope this was helpful. Ciao.